Grab your coffee, kick off your feet. It's time for Yahoo Spitz Daily. I'm Jason Spitz. She's Caroline Fenton. This is just going to keep happening. There's no way I'm going to be an adult about any of this for the next couple of hours. Heck, Jalen Carter wasn't an adult last night, so why do I need to be one now? We had a riveting Thursday night football game. We've got hot takes to spit out, and if you don't understand the spit references, you will soon. There is a lot to get to, Caroline Fenton. I don't know how we feeling this morning. Now that I've made it, I know we usually get straight to 3 points, but I'll give you the grace here. Do you have any spit puns you want to get in or anything?
I mean, I have a million that I will kind of like spit in throughout the rest of the show.
Okay.
But what a start to the NFL season. It was like a Stefan from SNL skit, and the S in SNL does in fact stand for spit. When he says, this place has everything. Like, this game had everything. A rain delay, CeeDee Lamb drops, a spitter. Like, that game, like, if that's just a preview of what is to come this NFL season, then buckle up your seatbelt because I'm ready for the chaos.
Don't keep a counter because we're full of spit and vinegar this morning. All right, let's get to 3 points the way we start every single show. Spit the fan. We've got all of them. Caroline Fenton, what is on your mind, my friend?
We are just full of spit this morning. Okay, so let's get into it. We'll move over to Eurobasket. And stop me if you may have heard this one before, basketball fans. Skinny Luka Doncic showed out in their Eurobasket tournament. He's been doing a whole lot of that overseas. Yesterday, he led Slovenia to their third straight win of the group play stage, scoring 24 points before halftime, but he ended up with 37 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. And that'll do it. That'll do it every single time. And that was enough for Slovenia to beat Israel 106-96. And thanks to his 37-piece, Luka Doncic has reached 1,100 points on the international level and passed Slovenia legend and former teammate Goran Dragic. So Eurobasket just continues to deliver. And I know that all of our eyes are on the football season, college and NFL, maybe on the US Open, but Eurobasket, there just continues to be history being made.
Loving every second of it and loving all the updates we get on this. Also, again, I'm just going to say it loud and proud. Loving Skinny Luka. Good for him. He's putting in the work. All right.
Skinny Luka, Spitty Luka.
Oh, wow. I'm going to spit some flow now about there. You're welcome, America. Let's talk some Clippers. Yet another day means yet another angle on the controversy around Kawhi Leonard and his full payments. Remember, Pablo Torre had reported that Kawhi may have made $26 to $28 million as a no-show job. And now we find out from John Corrales that apparently that could be even more. Kawhi Leonard's reported side deal with aspiration nearly twice what was originally reported, which would put the questionable commitment to him closer to Clippers owner Steve Ballmer's $50 million investment, which itself has a curious twist. Now, this is the moment where we all step back and say, shock. Oh, look, y'all, this is going to get worse before it gets better. And the problem here is we're not going to get any transparency. The one thing that you have to have when you have been caught with your hand in the cookie jar is transparency about what happened, why it happened, and what you're going to do moving forward. We're not getting any of that. And if your answer to transparency is putting Steve Ballmer on ESPN, then I would say shame on you. Why would you send Steve Ballmer to Ramona Shelburne, who, by the way, is a legend and a friend? Why would you send Steve Ballmer to Ramona Shelburne for this interview when Pablo Torre is the one that has spent months preparing this entire report? If you really want to be transparent, Steve Ballmer in the NBA, then you need to sit down with Pablo, who has months of research involved in this and has so much knowledge on the case that he can actually give you the thorough interview that you need and want to get down to the core of what actually happened. Instead, you go to the softest landing spot you can. Any of us that are trying to chase our tails to get this amount of information digested, consumed, and then be able to do an interview on it would be behind the eight ball from the outset because it's a ton of information to try and process. The only person in the world that could actually do a fair, reasonable, and thorough interview with Steve Ballmer is Pablo. But that's not what the Clippers did. And what have we heard from the NBA so far? Basically nothing. If you want anybody to trust the way you run your league, especially when you are a league that has literally had referees thrown in jail for throwing games, if you want people to trust your product, you have got to be transparent. That is all I can scream right now to Steve Ballmer, to the Clippers, and to the NBA. We deserve, as a public that consumes your product, transparency on what you knew, how you knew it, If you didn't know anything, how is that humanly possible? Every ounce of this needs to be uncovered, and it needs to be done in the biggest possible way where they laid their cards face up on the table if you want any of us to believe that your salary cap system is actually for real. We're waiting, NBA. We're waiting on you to say something to somebody that isn't just a soft landing spot. All right, now let's get to our top point of the day. That is Thursday night football. We are back.
We had football.
It felt good.
Football, real life football on our TV screens. It is back. It felt back.
I was like the big screens everywhere. Yeah, there was a moment, Caroline. You know how much I love football. Like I do what I do because of my love of football. I don't hide that. There was a moment where I was walking by, and I was out at like this big area that had the game on a screen, and I just heard an entire bar erupt, and I just thought, man, I missed that. Like when you you've left the room for 30 seconds to go tinkle and you just hear the whole room erupt, you're just running back in. The Cowboys lose to the Eagles 24-20. You see the score there, and it felt like the world came back together. You see a stat line there. Jalen Hurts 19-23, 152, 2 rushing touchdowns. Let's look at this. We're going to break this game down in a lot of ways, and obviously there is one huge portion of this game that we will get to. But let's take a look from last night of the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we saw from a divisional matchup that absolutely gave us all the drama we could possibly ask. You referenced it. We had an hour-and-a-half stop in the middle of this thing for Lightning. Even Lightning wanted to get involved in the opening night of the NFL season.
It was just so perfectly disgusting, wasn't it? And especially a meeting of these two teams. But I do think it's fair to say that there was plenty of good that we saw last night. Maybe good that we expected on one side. Maybe good that, frankly, I didn't expect from the Cowboy side. There was plenty of bad, and there was plenty of ugly in this one. But I think the first thing that I want to start off with, one of my biggest takeaways, at least from the Cowboys side, was their offense looked significantly better than really I expected. And look, the Dallas Cowboys have been the butt of a lot of jokes so far this past offseason. Trading Micah Parsons, I think we all laughed at Dallas Cowboys fans. We laughed at Jerry Jones. And I think we kind of laughed at the hire of Brian Schottenheimer, but I was really pleasantly surprised by what we saw from Dak last night. He was 21 of 34, 188 yards. The stat line isn't going to pop off the page, and obviously the stat line would have looked significantly better had CeeDee Lamb come down with some of those passes that he really should have caught when you're a $35 million wide receiver, but we'll get into the CeeDee Lamb of it all. I thought Dak Prescott looked sharp. I thought Dak Prescott looked dangerous at times. I thought the run game looked significantly better than I expected it. Javonte Williams was excellent, 54 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders, the Cowboys as a whole, ran for 5.5 yards a crack. That's gonna do it every single time. And I know there was no Jalen Carter, famously, comically. But, to run for 5.5 yards a crack, especially for a Cowboys run game that I had some questions about, it didn't feel like this was, your Ezekiel Elliott Cowboys run game. But against that Philadelphia Eagles defense, even without Jalen Carter, I think I was really impressed, or at least pleasantly surprised. Did it look like a championship caliber offense? No, it did not. But it looked better than I thought it would.
So I'll give you the good. To me, the good's how I feel today about my Super Bowl pick. I am more confident today, right now, in the Philadelphia Eagles repeating to the Super Bowl, getting to the Super Bowl again, than I was 24 hours ago, and I picked them. To me, this Eagles team lost Jalen Carter 8 seconds in. 8 seconds in. He spit. He gets ejected 8 seconds in. They lose a player on the opening kickoff that's carted off the field, which is a weird emotion. They deal with all the emotional stuff, the banner going up that they didn't even watch. Fine. And then everybody will come in and say, yeah, but look at that defense. It wasn't good enough. Okay, well, A, you are without Jalen Carter, which is a wild part of this. But B, yeah, they spent the whole night picking on the second corner for the Eagles. Of course, that's what you should do. But most teams aren't going to have Dak throwing to CeeDee and George Pickens. That is one of the best 1-2 combos you're going to find. And if you include the quarterback, it's one of the best 1-2-3 combos you're going to find. So we have an Eagles team that was without their best player on the defensive side of the ball that's still trying to figure out what they're trying to do with their second corner, and that committed more mental mistakes than I can remember. The end of the first half, remember, there was a pass interference and a roughing the passer call that essentially moved the Cowboys almost to midfield in a matter of 2 plays. The Eagles were sloppy and they still won this football game. The Eagles defense wasn't quite right, and they still won this football game. The Eagles did so many things that are uncharacteristic for Philly, and they still won the game. Yeah, in a conference full of questions that I don't have nearly as many questions today about Philadelphia as I did even a day ago. Even through some of the sloppiness in this, I'm more confident that they're headed back to the Super Bowl today than I was yesterday.
I think there's a few different ways that you can look at it. Really, two different ways that you can look at it. Whether you want to look at it from a glass half full optimistic perspective or a nitpicky perspective. That the Eagles had almost 100 penalty yards in the first half alone. Brutal. Jalen Carter got ejected for spitting on Dak Prescott. Like, can we talk about that for a second? Like, what? Jalen Carter, the Eagle, one of the best defensive players in the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the best defensive players in the National Football League, was ejected in the first game of the season because he spit on the Cowboys quarterback right in front of a referee when every single camera in the city of Philadelphia was on him and on Dak Prescott. Wild. What a start. Without Jalen Carter...
Stick there for a second. Let's do this. Let's go right there, because we have something on this show, particularly for people and fans that do stupid things. Let's let Jalen Carter take the walk of shame. You're right. Every camera in the stadium caught it. And, I just want to say this. I see a bunch of Philly fans saying Dak spit first. I don't care. We are not 12-year-old children. When you were a kid, if you walked in and it was like, why'd you hit your brother? Well, he hit me first. That never worked. It does not work as adults. As a society, we have to stop arguing like we are 10-year-old children that need to be taken back and spanked, right? Like, there is some element here of, I don't care if Dak did spit at the ground. I don't care if Dak did. I don't care. There is visual camera evidence of Jalen Carter directly spitting on another man. Whatever he gets from this, he deserves, because that is one of the most disrespectful and flat out stupid things that you can do 8 seconds into a season. Jalen Carter takes the walk of shame.
A walk of shame, walk the plank, anything, any term that you want to use. Also, that clip from Seinfeld is fantastic. But how stupid can you be? I mean, come on. We understand that this game, the game of football, is a game of inches. And any penalty, any bad decision can be the difference between a win or a loss, making or missing the playoffs, winning or losing a Super Bowl. And I will take this like one of my favorite little anecdotes from when I covered the Tennessee Titans for several years. Mike Vrabel, when he was the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, he would say several times after dumb penalties or fights that happened in practice, he would always say, don't do dumb stuff. He said a different word, but this is a family-friendly program. Don't do dumb stuff that hurts the team. It is so simple, but it is so impactful. And there have been so many examples where I feel like that little anecdote has been applicable. Just don't do dumb stuff that hurts the team. Don't do dumb penalties. Don't commit dumb turnovers. Don't do dumb things off the field that keep you off the field and hurts your team. Like, don't do dumb stuff that hurts the team. Last night, Jalen Carter did a dumb thing that hurt his football team. And if the Eagles lost last night, which there was a possibility, there was a door open for the Cowboys to come back and finish out that game and score in the final 2 minutes of that game. And of course, we'll get into all the intricacies of that. The Cowboys had a path to winning that football game last night. And I know they didn't, and we can play the coulda, shoulda, woulda game all day long. But if the Cowboys had won that game last night, how hard are we ripping Jalen Carter today? Because how many avenues could that game have been wildly different if Jalen Carter was on the field? I feel like Dak Prescott was able to kind of expose a question mark of a secondary of the Eagles last night. Like, I don't think that we know coming off that game last night who the Eagles' second corner is. Adoree Jackson had a couple of DPIs last night. He was grabbing onto CeeDee Lamb's jersey early. That area and that part of the Eagles' defense is a question mark. What is a secondary's best friend, Fitz? It's a good pass rush. If you get home to the quarterback, the corners don't have to do their job and they don't have to get exposed. So there's so many elements of that game last night that I have to think, well, how much better could the Eagles defense have been, or how much more could the Cowboys offense have been exposed if Jalen Carter was out there on the field? So I know the Eagles won, and I know it's easy to just move on from it, but Jalen Carter did a big dumb thing that hurt his team. And if they showed the replay one more time with that fat loogie in the middle of the air, I was truly going to have to turn the TV off. That was a thick, hefty little loogie.
That is not inaccurate. Charles Robinson, our great reporter, pointed out last night on Twitter, that it's rare in these cases for spitting to result in any sort of additional punishment. I want to say that clearly. And as was smartly pointed out this morning by Dan Graziano, he missed. Jalen Carter ended up missing the entirety of this game, which the NFL may view already as having been essentially, air quotes, suspended for a game. There doesn't seem to be a lot of expectation of additional punishment. I just, again, want to remind every single person out there, if your argument could be spoken by a child and you would roll your eyes, then you shouldn't make that same argument. So if your argument is, well, Dak did it first, sit down, shut up, and color in your book. All right, we're just getting started for the reaction to this game, but we've got a wild weekend ahead, including Friday Night Lights. Tonight, Chiefs, Chargers. We'll tell you about it next. This one is tough. Who you got as the best quarterback entering the season? That means entering this year. Yahoo Sports putting that out. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Now, we're going to see Patrick Mahomes tonight. The Chiefs taking on the Chargers in Brazil. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. They say it's tough. Our bosses say it's tough. Our social media department says it's tough. I roll my eyes. I don't think it's that tough. I'm going to be honest. Like, we're trying to make a really simple thing into a complicated thing. Life is already complicated. There is zero question in my mind, Caroline Fenton. If we walked in to just a random sports bar today and these four quarterbacks were all sitting there saying, okay, we're going to be free agents. You can pick any one of us to build your team around this year, and you don't pick Patrick Mahomes, you should be laughed at. Like, I just don't know why we make it this time. Like, I love Josh Allen. I love Lamar Jackson. I love Joe Burrow. We have to say these things. That's fine. Patrick Mahomes is better than all of them. So I don't know why we make this so complicated.
I think the good thing is, no matter what your answer is, you're right. Like, if you want to take Josh Allen, if you want to take Lamar Jackson, if you want to take Joe Burrow, if you want to take Patrick Mahomes, like, the answer, like, you're correct. 100%. If somebody asks me, pick one of them, I say yes. It's not very often that when you have the fourth overall pick in a draft, you end up with an elite quarterback, and that's exactly what we're looking at here. But if you have to pick one, it's hard to argue against Patrick Mahomes. Again, we can talk about stats. We can talk about who's going to be an MVP this year, because if I have to pick MVP this year, I'm probably not picking Patrick Mahomes. I'm probably going to take Lamar Jackson or, Josh Allen to go back-to-back, or Joe Burrow. Is that more of a result of everyone has Mahomes fatigue and all of the voters are going to want to pick someone else? Like, yeah, maybe. But, we can have this conversation all day long. But at the end of the day, who has more rings? Who has a ring? It's Patrick Mahomes. What's the issue that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow run into almost every single year? It's Patrick Mahomes. Why do these other quarterbacks, these three elite quarterbacks, the next three best, however you want to rank them, quarterbacks in the National Football League, why do none of them have a Super Bowl ring? It's because of that man, Patrick Mahomes. So we can, we can talk about what they do best all day long. We can talk about their skill set all day long. We can talk about, who we would want to draft first overall in a draft all day long. But at the end of the day, the reason why three elite quarterbacks in the NFL do not have a Super Bowl ring is because of that man. That man that sounds like Kermit the Frog. It's because of Patrick Mahomes. And it's because he is the most clutch quarterback in the gotta have it moments. He is the most clutch quarterback in the NFL.
That's the clutch element of it. I just want to say this before we move to the game. It's not just about Super Bowls. It's about the fact that, he's 89 and 23 in one-score games in his career. Like that, this question is so simple.
Wild.
If you have 2 minutes to go right now, every single team, 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl, 2 minutes to go, and you can pick any quarterback to do it. Who's the quarterback you're going to pick? And if any of you say that it's not Patrick Mahomes, then raise your hand so we know who the liars in the room are. That's as simple for me. Even if you are a Bills fan right now and you've got Josh Allen, and I think he's absolutely otherworldly, deep down in your heart that if it was 2 minutes to go and you were walking over the sideline and they're like, hey, we'll give you Mahomes or Josh for this one, you're taking Mahomes. It always seems to work out for him. Now, tonight, we'll see if they need 2-minute magic from Mahomes, but we do have the Chiefs versus the Chargers in a huge matchup, divisional matchup, much like we saw last night. Could have playoff ramifications, all of these things. The Chiefs favored by 3. BetMGM has the over-under on it at 45.5. Let's look at the other quarterback on this. Is this like the beginning of a moment for Justin Herbert in your mind?
Why would it be? I feel like we've all been waiting for Justin Herbert to have that wow breakout moment that we've all been wanting so badly, to put Justin Herbert in that same kind of conversation as the Burrows, the Mahomes, the Jacksons, the Allens, but he's just not. He was in the same draft class as Joe Burrow, and he hasn't had that big time breakout moment. It's kind of the same thing with Tua in Miami. We've all just been kind of waiting for that moment. And I think that we can all kind of conclude that Tua is just not that guy. He's not going to be that guy. And that's okay. Not every guy is that guy, but he's just not. I don't think that we can every single year say, well, is this the year for Justin Herbert? Is this the year for Justin Herbert? When are we collectively as a football society going to accept that Justin Herbert just isn't that guy? So can Justin Herbert take a step forward, with an upgraded run game with Najee Harris and a Marion Hampton? Sure, yeah, we can see Justin Herbert look good at times. But, there's Rashawn Slater, their starting left tackle, is out. Joe Alt's going to be moving to the left side. That offensive line is going to be in shuffle. You still feel really good that you have Joe Alt on the left side, but the offensive line, I think, is going to be at least a little bit of a question mark for me going into this matchup tonight. But can Justin Herbert look a little bit better? Can he take a couple steps forward? Sure, absolutely. But I don't think he's going to take that massive leap to now all of a sudden be in the class of the quarterbacks in the AFC.
I also think this has something to do with the system and the coaches that he plays for. He's got an offensive coordinator in Greg Roman that likes to run the football. He's got a head coach in Jim Harbaugh that loves to run the football. You mentioned Amari and Hampton. This is a team that is going to go out and try and assert their dominance and then use their quarterback in the smartest possible way. Now, can Justin Herbert thrive in that system? Yeah. But is Justin Herbert ever going to give us those Joe Burrow moments in that system? Not likely. That's not something that's really going to be asked of him. So it's such a hard comp to make because I just don't think he's going to be put in those same situations. So this isn't just about Justin Herbert's talent or anything else. Systems, styles make fights, right? And so I'm not sure the style of the Chargers is ever going to make the fight that puts Justin Herbert into the same conversation as Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, any of those guys, based on just what he's going to be asked to do in this offense, particularly with Harbaugh as his head coach. Now, do you believe...
And let me say, too, I think there's probably 10 to 15 teams in the NFL that would take Justin Herbert over the quarterback situation that they have right now. That's not to say that Justin Herbert is a bad starting quarterback in the slightest. I think he's a top 10, top 15 kind of guy, but he's not in that same conversation. But yeah, go ahead.
Let me be clear. My favorite team, I'd rather have Justin Herbert as quarterback. I think Justin Herbert
100%.
is a very good quarterback. There's no doubt about it. Like, this is where anytime you try and say anything negative about a player, it becomes, well, you suck and blah, 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 blah. Like, there's some middle ground in here. Like, you cannot be in the same level as 4 Hall of Famers. Like, today, right now, I think Josh Allen has already stamped himself as a Hall of Famer. If he retired today, he's a Hall of Famer. I believe that today, right now, if he retired today, Lamar Jackson's already a Hall of Famer. Patrick Mahomes is already a Hall of Famer. And I believe Joe Burrow has Hall of Fame level ability that will eventually get him there. So I'm sorry. I'm just saying that I'm not sure right now Justin Herbert's a Hall of Famer. Like, that's the real conversation.
That's okay.
It's got to be okay. Like, not everybody can be in the Hall of Fame at the same time. Do you believe that these two teams are clearly the class of the AFC West?
Clearly the class of the AFC West, no, because I would like to see the Denver Broncos. And look, the Denver Broncos, I think, are going to beat the Tennessee Titans this weekend 100-0. But I do think that with Denver's defense, going to be a top 5, top 10 unit in the NFL, Bo Nix in year 2, and with Sean Payton, like, the Broncos are going to be in that conversation. But the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West, right? Like, if you're picking against the Chiefs to win the AFC West, I think you're wrong, or you're just trying to be cute and different. So we will see tonight the winner of this division, because we are going to watch the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think the Broncos would, like to enter the chat when we talk about the class of the AFC West. In fact, I would take the Chiefs to win the division. I'm taking the Denver Broncos to be the second best team in the division, with the Chargers very closely behind. And sorry, Fitz,
I think that's
the Raiders.
I think that's fair.
Going to be rounding out. The Raiders going to be rounding out the top 4 in the division.
Thank you. So all I heard was Raiders top 4. That's all I heard out of that. That seems like that's a fairly accurate take.
That matters.
That's
Don't ask how many teams are in the division.
If we could just clip that off, Caroline Fenton says Raiders a top 4 team, and then we just cut the rest of in their division. I think that's a fair, reasonable take. Now, I'm with you on that. I'm picking the Chiefs to win the division. I'm also picking the Broncos to be in second. I think the Broncos and Chargers both have a real shot at the playoffs. So tonight, any prediction on this? I've got the Chiefs winning. Look, it's going to be a close game. And as I said, you don't beat Mahomes in one-score games. In fact, last year, Mahomes was 15-1 in one-score games. How do you like that? So I will take because I think it's going to be a close game. Some things never change. Mahomes wins, so it's 21-17 Chiefs. I got him.
See, Justin Herbert doesn't beat the Chiefs. Like, he just does not beat the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are going to win this one. And look, while the Chiefs are 7-1 against the Chargers in their last 8 meetings, the average margin of victory is only 5 points. Like, it's not like the Chiefs have been consistently blowing the Chargers out. So, the history would tell you, yes, Chiefs win, but Chiefs win in a close one. But I think, while the Chiefs have a tendency to play with their food, especially early in the season, they kind of put Travis Kelce on a pitch count. They want to keep him, healthy and 100% for the postseason. Like, the Chiefs just kind of like wake up in the fourth quarter against teams that they should be dominating. I think that this game might be the exception. Everything that I've heard out of Chiefs camp is like, whoa, this is a different Patrick Mahomes. Like, this might be peak Patrick Mahomes. And if we haven't even seen peak Patrick Mahomes, Fitz, like, I'm terrified. I think the Chiefs have been thinking about how embarrassed they got in the Super Bowl for the last 6, 7, 8 months, however long it's been. They've been thinking about that. They've been thinking about the fact that the Eagles put in their backups in the Super Bowl and how embarrassed they got, how all the talk about three-peating just got flushed down the toilet after the first half. So I don't think the Chiefs play with their food in this one. I think the Chiefs want to make a statement. So I think that the Chiefs win this one 28-17.
Chiefs playing with their food only makes me think of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes reenacting Christmas Story, where it's like, show me how the piggies eat. All right. Thanks.
I don't like that.
That's just going to be.
I hate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we've gotten you how the piggies eat and spitting all in the first 30 minutes of the show. We're going to class it up though, coming up. And we got Tinkle in. Yeah, that's fair. The bingo card class is absolutely just rolling through. We'll get classier coming up though. Get you some of the insights you need from college football. How high should we be on Michigan? We'll ask Dan Wolken next. Oklahoma has as many 11-win seasons since 2010 as Michigan has since 1906. SEC numbers guy just out here throwing shade, and I always like to sing Oklahoma because it makes the musical theater kid me happy. All right, let's get some insight on this from one of the newest additions to Yahoo's roster of amazing writers. He's award-winning. We all know him, Dan Wolken. Dan, I would like, in fairness, we were messaging the other day. I'm so excited you're part of the team, and now, boom, you've had like 6 seconds here, and we're making you get up incredibly early to hang out with us. We're going to get into some football. We're going to get into some tennis. Let's start that Michigan-Oklahoma matchup, okay? First time these two teams have met in the regular season. Everybody's talking about it. What to you stands out as the most interesting storyline from this game?
Well, there's a couple. Obviously, Bryce Underwood and his big debut in a major national road game. He was really good against New Mexico in week 1, but it's New Mexico. Now you've got to go to Oklahoma. John Mateer, people very excited about him at Oklahoma after they had a lot of quarterback problems the last couple years. Sharon Moore not going to be in this game as the head coach in Michigan, so that's a interesting element. He played there, so he desperately wanted to coach in this one. But yeah, like this is one of those great Big Ten SEC battles, and we're going to find out who's who in week 2.
And I am ready for it. It is interesting that you bring up the quarterbacks because I think you're seeing a kind of a stark contrast between modern day of college football. Bryce Underwood, he literally just turned 18 years old and he's making $12 million a year. Then you have John Mateer, who's in year 4, year 5 in college football, spent his first few years at Washington State. Now you're seeing him upgrade and seeing that kind of transfer portal success story come to fruition. We saw in week 1, at least, veteran quarterback versus first-time starter, and the veteran quarterback came out ahead almost every single time. You know, C.J. Carr at Notre Dame threw the death pick, and Carson Beck at Miami didn't, and that was the difference, a 3-point game Miami over Notre Dame. Do we think that comes to fruition tonight, or is Bryce Underwood going to be kind of an immediate return on investment?
Yeah, it's a great point. And you do worry a little bit in this NIL era about the expectations that get put on a young person like Bryce Underwood because, yeah, 5 stars in the past certainly came in with a lot of hype. But when you put a dollar figure next to somebody's name and say, this is what you're earning to be part of this program, that does change things quite a bit. And we saw at Tennessee, for instance, with Nico Iamaleava, it didn't go great. And now he's at UCLA, he had to take a pay cut. His career is certainly not what they thought it was going to be when he went to Tennessee originally. That doesn't mean that's going to be the case for Bryce Underwood for sure. But I think you do have to now factor in that pressure for a young person expected to produce early, going on the road at Oklahoma. If he doesn't play well, I won't be surprised, and I certainly won't get off the bandwagon. But how many Michigan fans will feel the same way?
Dan, that's part of why I feel like, and Caroline's heard me rail on this repeatedly, like I love transfer portal quarterbacks that have played like 87 years of college football. We saw it last year. It seems like it works again. So Mateer comes into Oklahoma as somebody that has just seen a lot of football. What's the ceiling in your mind for him and for Oklahoma specifically if he's able to play well?
Well, if you look at last year, Oklahoma had a lot of holes on that team, and they really had to go into the portal. They had no choice. Obviously, Jackson Arnold left them and went to Auburn, and they've just cycled through a bunch of quarterbacks under the Brent Venables regime, and I think they believe and they hope that now they have the guy who's going to fit with the existing pieces they have and lift them from the bottom of the SEC at least to the middle, if not to the top. But yeah, like, there is something to be said for that experience. The question, I think, for every coach is just how that mix works in your locker room. It's got to be a good culture fit. The quarterback's obviously going to lead the team, and you want the right guy in there, especially if they're just coming in for 1 year for money. Let's be honest about it. It's got to be the right type of personality, and I think we've seen a lot of locker rooms go bad because of that. But I think Oklahoma feels very good about the kind of person they have in John Mateer, not just the quarterback.
I can't hear Caroline, so I'm just going to jump in here. Your misery index.
Excuse me. Sorry,
back.
I muted
There
myself.
Go ahead, Caroline.
Apologies. So sorry about that. But yeah, like Fitz said, your misery index is back. And as someone who has been a very miserable college football fan in the past, I like to know that I'm not alone, at least in my misery. But Oklahoma, 2 of the last 3 seasons, has gone 6-6 in the regular season. That is not the Oklahoma standard. So if they lose this game to Michigan at home in Norman, which I know is going to be a raucous environment, how miserable will these Oklahoma fans be, and how hot will Brent Venables' seat be?
Yeah, well, they owe him a lot of money for sure, and that's always a factor when you talk about potential coaching changes. I wouldn't put everything on this game, certainly being at home in a marquee non-conference matchup. That's critical for him to win those kind of games. You're Oklahoma, you expect those moments, and you expect to win them. But they're going to have a whole SEC schedule ahead of them where they can either make up ground or they may win this game and flail around in the SEC, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference in terms of Venables' future. There's a lot of change going on at Oklahoma. Joe Castiglione, the longtime athletic director, is retiring. He's not really overseeing football at this point. They brought in a man named Jim Nagy, who was the head of the Senior Bowl. He's kind of the GM. He's kind of running the program right now. And, ultimately he's going to be very involved in whatever decision gets made from a football standpoint, but Oklahoma is also going to be hiring a new athletic director. It's just a very sort of uncertain and volatile time. And I know that the one way that you can calm the waters at Oklahoma is to win games like Saturday against Michigan.
Calming the waters at Oklahoma, that's funny. It's just never like big time college football fans getting calm. Dan's out here with jokes early in the morning. I love this. All right, Dan. U.S. Open. You're covering the U.S. Open. You had a late night. We had a late night watching it. I'm telling you earlier, we were split screening it, watching all the action. I found myself, I'll be honest, I was rooting for Naomi. I don't know why. Like, I was just rooting for Naomi, but Naomi Osaka goes down to Amanda Anisimova. You wrote before the match that Osaka appeared to be back. Now we get this result. Do you question that now?
No, not at all. And in fact, what I wrote after the match, and you can go check it out at Yahoo Sports, is I think this whole run for her was not only great for Naomi Osaka, it was great for the WTA Tour and women's tennis. She is the one player who can move the needle in the post-Serena Williams era. Doesn't mean there aren't a lot of great players. There are. Iga Swiatek, Anisimova, Coco Gauff, Aryna Sabalenka trying to defend her U.S. Open title on Saturday. Wonderful players, really good personalities. But Naomi just has that transcendent quality that crosses all the boundaries of sports fans and culture and entertainment. She's got that it factor, and she has not been the real Naomi Osaka for the last couple years. What she's done this summer, got to the finals in Canada, got to the semifinals here. Those are really the only big results she's had since she came back from giving birth to her daughter a couple years ago. And if this propels her to being more regularly in the mix at the end of Grand Slams, that is going to be a huge boon for women's tennis. And I think ultimately, and she said it after the match, I can't be too mad at myself because I didn't expect this. I played really well, did all I could. This motivates me to work harder and get better. So I know all of tennis is hoping that she really means that.
Yeah, Naomi Osaka, the person and the player, is just so easy to root for. But you bring up Aryna Sabalenka. She's defending her U.S. Open title and taking on Amanda Anisimova in the final. You called Anisimova a mental giant the other day. So will that be her edge in the finals on Saturday?
So impressive when you look at the fact she lost the Wimbledon final 6-love to Iga Swiatek. The most humiliating thing that can ever happen to a tennis player on the court in the biggest stage the entire sport has at Wimbledon. She comes back, gets the same matchup in the U.S. Open quarterfinals and turns the table, wins it, plays great, comes back the very next day against Osaka last night. She loses the first set. She's down in the second. She's just hanging by her fingernails to stay in this match. She flips it around at the end of the second set and just takes off in the third, winner after winner. She is a mental giant because I don't think that 99% of even really good tennis players could have overcome mentally that situation she faced the last 2 nights.
Dan, let's move over to the men's side. Yannick Sinner, number 1 player in the world defending his title. How can he be taken down?
Well, he really can't, except for by Carlos Alcaraz. And it's just one of those great matchup things you have in tennis where one guy's style of game just is able to penetrate the defenses of the other guy for some reason. And it's the variety of Alcaraz, it's the athleticism, his ability to track down balls that nobody else in the world can get to. He just makes Sinner do a little bit extra, makes him think a little bit more about what he's doing out there. And that's why Alcaraz leads that head-to-head matchup, even though it's very clear that Jannik Sinner is the best player in the world. Now, the one caveat to that is at this U.S. Open, Alcaraz has played the best he's ever played. He's been unbelievable. He's mowed everybody down. He's been completely locked in and focused every minute of every match, which is unusual for him. Now, he's got to play Novak Djokovic today. That's been an interesting matchup for him. But if he can get through that and we get the Sinner-Alcaraz final for a third straight Grand Slam, that's really what everybody wants to see.
I feel lucky that we as a society get Djokovic and Alcaraz here in the semifinal. Djokovic has won the last 2 head-to-head matches, but at 38 years old, can he go the distance with a young player like Carlos Alcaraz?
That's been the problem. He's gotten to the semifinals of these Grand Slam tournaments, and he's felt like the tank is empty, that he's operating at half speed. Some of that is injuries, and he's been dealing with a neck thing here and grabbing at this and rubbing that. But that's what happens when you get to age 38. Your tank's not going to be full. He has done an unbelievable job managing his body and especially managing his game. He understands at this point in his career the way he has to play to shorten points, to conserve energy, to manage a match. He's the best at it. But when you're going up against a guy like Alcaraz in the prime of his life, trying to win a 5-setter, it's not easy, and I'm not sure he can do it. And I'm not sure he thinks he can do it.
If he does, if he shocks the world, if he wins this whole thing, does that cement him as the best ever?
Well, I think he's probably already got the title of most accomplished tennis player in history. Now, we can debate what best means. He's got the most Grand Slams, the most Masters, the most weeks at number one, all of those things. Indisputable. I think what you're looking at is, can he beat Alcaraz and Sinner to win this title, number 25? Does that make him the greatest athlete ever? And that's a conversation I think people are going to have if he wins this title.
Well, Dan, you're our GOAT for getting up this early in the morning. We appreciate you hanging out. When you're watching the broadcast, if you see somebody with 2 phones in his hand, one is work, one's watching college football while he's watching all the tennis action go down. Dan, we appreciate you, man. Enjoy the tennis and the college football this weekend.
Yeah, good to be on with y'all.
Dan Wolken absolutely crushing it as he always does. All right, speaking of college football, who's on upset alert this weekend? We got some big names and big games. We'll tell you who might be a little bit scared. Bill Belichick has banned Patriot scouts from attending UNC practices to scout their players. As John Middlecoff reported on his show, NFL scouts in general have faced hurdles scouting UNC players so far under Belichick's tenure at North Carolina. Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, and we're going to get into some upset alerts, including North Carolina. But first, Caroline, this is so stupid to me. And just one thing that it proves that Bill Belichick is unaware of how the college game works, because you could bet your butt every single coach in the country, every single recruiter in the country, every single person that works for a college football program is going to send this tweet to anybody they think is considering North Carolina and say, hey, if you really want to play on Sundays, do you believe he can get you there if he won't even let the Patriots come in the building and look at you up close and personal? Like, it is so – I've never heard of any coach blocking NFL teams from coming in and looking at the players that you have on your roster. But this is openly Bill Belichick hurting the chances of the kids that play for him of making it to an NFL team. That is asinine. It's ego-driven, and it's the sort of thing that will drive down their ability to recruit long-term as long as he's the head coach there.
Well, you say you haven't heard of any other coach doing this. That's because no other coach would do this, because it's idiotic and it's stupid and it's inconceivable. And it is so anti-Belichick, because when Bill Belichick was the coach of the New England Patriots, his one thing, the number one prerogative, the only thing that mattered was winning. Winning at all costs. Whether you had to be in the building at 3 o'clock in the morning, sleep at your desk, work all day. Yeah, your life is miserable, but the winning makes it fun and the winning makes it worth it. That, to me, was the Patriot way. But now Bill Belichick is letting his own personal ego and his own vendettas with whoever he doesn't get along with in the New England Patriots building, and Robert Kraft, and their very public beefing. He's letting that get in the way of having success in winning football games at North Carolina. And you might say, okay, well, how is not letting New England Patriots scouts at practice, how does that affect winning on the field? Because I don't think Bill, and this was one concern of mine whenever Bill made the leap to the college game. One big difference from the college game to the NFL is how you acquire players. In the NFL, you draft players. You get to pick players. In college football, those players have to pick you. You have to compete against the Clemsons and the Florida States and the Miamis of your own conference, and not to mention that you have to compete with every other program in America for players to want to pick you. So if you are actively blocking players' ability to get drafted into the NFL and exposure to NFL scouts and general managers, why would players want to come play for you? Any player with NFL aspirations isn't going to want to play at a school that is actively blocking said NFL aspirations. So if you are recruiting players and attracting players that don't have NFL aspirations, then you are attracting the bottom of the talent barrel. So this is just all, the next page in the book of the reason why I don't think Bill Belichick will be successful at this level. And it's because he cares way too much about winning the argument than winning on the football field at this stage in his career.
The question is, can they win this weekend? They're 13.5-point favorites against Charlotte, the Charlotte 49ers in Charlotte. Let's look at some potential upsets. Look, I'm be honest. I don't know that much about the Charlotte football team this year. But I do know a decent amount about North Carolina. I don't feel good about North Carolina being a 2-touchdown favorite against anybody right now. I mean, there's just too much to prove. So, look, do I think they beat Charlotte? They should beat Charlotte, but who the hell knows?
And also, I just want to ask whoever in the athletic department at UNC scheduled this game at Charlotte, you don't need to be doing that. You do not need to be playing at Charlotte. No disrespect to Charlotte, but, two different caliber of programs there. I think North Carolina should be on upset alert, because I think TCU is a good football team. I do not think TCU is an elite football team. They looked elite against North Carolina last week. Now, that's not to say that they can't make adjustments and they can't improve, they can't watch the tape, they can't get better, week over week over week. But that is to say that I'm concerned about North Carolina beating anybody on their schedule.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair. Let's look at some of the other upset alert games that we've got out here. How about Missouri taking on Kansas, one of the games that we've got our eyes on? And look, this one gets really interesting to me because Kansas is a team that, right now they're looking at their 6.5-point underdog, as you see on the screen right there. But this is a Kansas football team that, frankly, I don't want to sleep on. they've got an experienced quarterback. What did I say earlier? I absolutely love experienced quarterbacks. So if you've got an experienced quarterback, and Jalen Daniels has played a lot of college football, I feel good about that. He's with the head coach that has an offensive mindset that I absolutely believe in. Lance Leipold is somebody that, let's be honest, he's won everywhere he's gone. Now, he's got a different offensive coordinator. This is the third straight year that they're bringing in a different offensive coordinator. At some point, we're going to have to acknowledge, though, that part of what makes the offense tick for Kansas is Lance Leipold. That's part of the reason he's had this success. So I trust his ability to hire. I trust his ability to run a team. And I trust his ability to get the most out of an athletic quarterback. Certainly, with the quarterback that they have the opportunity. And Emmanuel Henderson, a wide receiver that transferred in from Alabama, is somebody that had a big game last year. Look to see what they can do. If Missouri decides that the number one thing that they need to do is figure out how to take care of Jalen Daniels, they got to understand, if you start accounting for his legs, you will need to account for his arms. So, yes, I think absolutely Missouri is on upset alert this weekend. And frankly, I'm not even sure it's that big of an upset. For me, the degenerate, I've got my money already on Kansas. I think Kansas wins this football game.
I would not be surprised in the slightest. Look, this game matters. Like, to these two programs, this game matters. This isn't just some random SEC Big 12 matchup. This is the border war. Like, this used to be the game. I mean, when Mr. Brightside plays at Missouri Stadium, still to this day, even though they've been in the SEC for more than a decade, they say FKU. FKU. Like, this rivalry still matters to Missouri, but I think Missouri just has so many question marks and so little continuity from last season. And as long as you have Jalen Daniels, not Jalen Daniels wearing your uniform, you feel good about, your chances in any sort of matchup. Then I think that Jalen Daniels' legs can be lethal to any defense, and especially a Missouri run defense that was good, not great last season. He can pick you apart on the ground or in the air.
Yeah, okay, let's take a look at another game. A little bit of a rival here, an SEC game. Kentucky, Ole Miss. Now, these games historically are close, Caroline. So are we on upset alert?
We absolutely are on upset alert. And don't tell me that it's not, because the last three meetings, Ole Miss is 2-1, but Ole Miss has won by a combined 4 points in those two games. One of them was in overtime, and they just barely squeaked by with a 1-point win. Last season, Ole Miss had the number one transfer portal class in America. They invested so much money in that transfer portal class. They had a veteran returning quarterback in Jackson Dart. Ole Miss had all of the pieces of a college football playoff program. In fact, those were the expectations in Oxford last year. Kentucky didn't even make a bowl game, and Kentucky went into Oxford and beat Ole Miss. I mean, Kentucky was down 4. They were facing 4th and 8 at the end of the game, and Brock Vandagriff, Kentucky's quarterback last season, completed a 60-plus yard pass to put them into scoring territory. It was inexplicable. It was wild. There was no reason why that Kentucky team should have beaten that Ole Miss team that went on to beat Georgia later on in the season, but they did. I don't know what it is. Kentucky has some sort of bugaboo over Ole Miss, that these games are close, and Kentucky can even find a way to win it at Kroger Field. So I think Ole Miss absolutely should be on upset alert against Kentucky.
Kentucky's passing stat line last week against Toledo, where Zach Calzada he was 10 of 23 for 85 yards against
Fitz, I don't care.
Like,
I don't even
Kentucky
care.
can't
throw everything that you know about these teams out the window, because for some reason Kentucky finds a way to make things close and uncomfortable for Ole Miss.
Hey, look, piece of advice, Coach Kiffin, just put everybody in the box and stop. Kentucky can run the football. Just stop them from running the football. Don't even cover the wide receivers. See if they can complete a pass if you don't even cover the wide receivers. So we'll see on that one. Let's get another one in. How about this one? Wisconsin taking on MTSU. That's Middle Tennessee State, for those of you keeping track at home. That you're saying, why in the hell would we be talking about MTSU surprising Wisconsin? I'll start quickly, and I'll just say this, Caroline. Trap game, because Wisconsin's got Alabama coming up next. So are they overlooking MTSU? But is MTSU actually the new generation of giant killer?
I mean, very well could be. Like, this is one that I circled at the beginning of the season as an uh-oh kind of game. Like, uh-oh, is something weird going to happen? It happens every single year. And should Wisconsin trounce MTSU by 4 touchdowns? Yeah, they should. Will I be surprised if they do, in fact, trounce MTSU by 4 touchdowns? No, I'm not going to be surprised in the slightest. But Northern Illinois should not have beaten Notre Dame last season. In 2022, App State should not have beaten Texas A&M. App State shouldn't have beaten Michigan in 2007 either. MTSU should not have beaten Miami a couple of years ago, but they did. These things happen. So maybe MTSU is your modern day version of App State or Troy or any other giant killer that you want to throw out there. So will I be surprised if Wisconsin wins? Of course not. But don't be surprised if you see somebody in week 2, which I like to call Cupcake Week. Don't be surprised if a giant gets got by a cupcake, because it seems to happen every single year.
I'm in on this game being really interesting and important, though, because I need to watch Wisconsin and see how it looks. This should be a tune-up, and this is a tune-up for a game against Alabama that has absolutely massive ramifications. We've already talked about Louisiana Monroe taking on the Crimson Tide this week. I think both of these teams are pretty safe going into Cupcake Week. But to Caroline's point, all of this is going to be about what if Wisconsin comes out, thunder of the gods, and we start asking ourselves next week, oh, can Wisconsin take down Alabama? Because you think that seat gets hot now. There is absolutely nothing that will make it hotter than finding a way to lose to a team like Wisconsin. So the drama from Cupcake Week will expand all the way into week 3. The drama from the NFL just got started last night, but it continues all weekend. We'll give you a preview of it coming up next. It's a Friday, and that means hour number 2, I don't know, of Yahoo Sports Daily is going on. We started with tinkling and spitting, and now we're all the way to singing. I don't know. Fridays get weird all over the place. Caroline Fenton.
We're doing a full circle, a full
Thank
spit and tinkle circle.
And thank you. Look, every hour on the hour, we'll continue to bring it up. Let's start the hour like we do all the time. 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Yeah, we got some news late last night, which is something that we probably should have expected, but now it is in fact confirmed that Caitlin Clark will be out for the remainder of the 2025 season. She has been out since July 15th. She's missed almost 2 months of the season. She's been dealing with a groin injury that's been setting her back. She's also been dealing with other kind of twinks and kind of things that have hurt her throughout the season, and that's left her on the bench. And she did return to non-contact practice. She did return to shoot around, but it was not quite enough to keep her in throughout the rest of the season. Now, the Fever only have 3 games left. They're currently 8th place in the WNBA standings, so they're just barely hanging on to a playoff spot. But as you see there, she released a statement on social media. She said, "I hope that I could get a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season." Fitz, there's been a lot of back and forth. There have been a lot of wondering from some WNBA fans and WNBA media about when Caitlin Clark could potentially make her return. There's been, some wondering, has Caitlin Clark, has there ever really been optimism within the building that she could come back? But the Fever are making kind of a strategic decision, a tactical advantage kind of decision to keep all of that close to the chest. They very intentionally wanted to make all of Caitlin Clark's injury updates vague. They didn't want to have to release any information that they didn't have to release. So I do have to wonder, why now? Why make this statement now after nearly 2 months of Caitlin Clark being on the bench? But the news of the evening in the WNBA, no Caitlin Clark for the rest of the season. That's compounded with no Sophie Cunningham for the rest of the season, no Ari McDonald for the rest of the season, no Sydney Colson for the rest of the season. And this is a Fever team that we saw through all of their moves this past offseason. They were making a push for a championship, but that championship and all of those dreams and all of those that optimism, all of those hopes were completely riddled with injury. And so now the Fever might be finding themselves in a place where they might even miss the playoffs if the Sparks keep up to their winning ways.
If I'm a Fever fan, I want them to miss the playoffs at this point. There's no point in going in. Like, get the better draft pick. And what do we say in every single sport? Go get the better draft pick, right? And I know that doesn't feel great right now, but if we're being honest, everything's going to be about the future of Caitlin. And I think, to jump in here and make a point on this, Caroline, I feel like we need, as a collective sports society, to learn a little from this, because when Caitlin came back and she played for that week in early July, and there was questions about, she played in the game against Connecticut and she re-injured herself. All of a sudden it was like, well, right before the All-Star game, what are they doing? And, they're about to play the New York Liberty and they need the TV ratings. Like, we put all of these other things around Caitlin that it surprises me sometimes. At the end of the day, they should be treating Caitlin Clark like we treat any superstar in any sport. Like, we have to presume that when she's healthy, she's going to be out there. But if she's not, don't rush her back. Don't try and create some situation. Just because you're thirsty for the attention today, you don't put her at risk. And I think that's part of what we as a society watching the W need to understand. Sometimes the conversation gets so much about what she brings to the WNBA without the conversation being about just the player. And the player here, I'm not sure should have ever come back on the court, right? Like, she looked like a shell of herself for the week that she was back, and then she gets re-injured, and all of a sudden we see this all the time. I want to see basketball players in general, W and NBA. I want to see basketball players figure out a better way to make sure they're closer to 100% before they get on the court. And I know that feels impossible, but the string of re-injuries we've seen across both of these sports is, to me, staggering, and something that we need to start adjusting the way we bring players back from.
And I think the most impactful thing that I heard, this was earlier in the season, Caitlin Clark spoke with the media and said, this is the first time I'm kind of starting to feel age. Like, this is the first time in my career where I can't run around and around and around and around and not get tired. She was starting to feel kind of the weight of that start to come to fruition. And I think when we look back over the past couple of years for Caitlin Clark, like, it's not a surprise that maybe that physically started to take a toll, emotionally started to take a toll. She went through an absolute whirlwind of a college career, of getting to the national championship game, very shortly after she was the number 1 overall pick. And then immediately she had to be an impact player for the Indiana Fever. And they got to the playoffs. They had an exciting season. She was rookie of the year. And then this past offseason was the first offseason in nearly 2 years where she was actually able to just take a step back and take a breather. So some of these things, both physically and emotionally, start to take a toll. So, it is a good thing. I thought at that point, it got to a certain point where Caitlin Clark had been out for several games. She had been out for almost half of the season at one point, and I thought to myself, what's the point in rushing her back? What's the point in bringing back a less than 100% Caitlin Clark, especially when the Fever players started to go down with more and more season-ending injuries? I think for right now, everything for the Fever is just playing with house money. If the Fever are able to sneak into the playoffs at this point, if they do clinch the 8th seed, they will be playing the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx are the best team in the WNBA. And so if the Fever are able to pick a couple of wins in the playoffs against the Lynx, then great. And if they're not, then so be it. Their season has been derailed by injury. So many times in sports, as sports fans, whenever teams fall short of expectation, we want to rationalize it. We want to have somebody pay for that. We want to say, okay, this is what went wrong. With the Fever, it's just injuries. That's what went wrong. It's disappointing 1,000%. It's definitely not the way that Fever fans wanted the season to go, but you can at least point to saying, well, there's 4 of our starters right there that are now, on crutches or on a scooter. There's a hilarious clip out of Fever practice a couple of days ago. Sidney Colson was on crutches. Saw a couple players riding around on scooters, and that was just kind of the season and what the season has been for the Fever. The practices look like a medical supply store. Unfortunately, that's just what this Fever team is faced with, and Caitlin Clark obviously is the biggest portion of that. Sideline her for the season, get her back 100% for next year, and capitalize on that championship window, because I think in 2026, the Fever are going to be right back in there in a championship conversation.
I love that you said championship window. I will just remind everybody, every year you have Caitlin Clark, you are in a championship window. So this year hasn't gone the way that Indiana thought it would go, but it doesn't change the fact that next year will still be in their championship window. They'll get the opportunity to continue to add to their roster, tweak to their roster, which I think is important. And oh, by the way, through the course of a season that didn't have as much Caitlin as everybody hoped, the W has still absolutely remained in the consciousness of the people, and it has continued to grow. So there are wins, weirdly, that come from all of this. It's obviously all better when Caitlin is all better. I just want to see 100% or the closest we can ever get of a professional athlete. And in order to do that, if that means that she has to be put in bubble wrap until we start next season, so be it. All right. Let's move on to the top point. And the top point comes in football being back and a weekend of wild action in the NFC East. We got earlier to some of the good and the bad, obviously, from the Cowboys. We've got another matchup with
the good, the bad, and the spit.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the spit. Yeah, the good, the bad. The spit is its own category. Fans will be spitting with joy when they get to watch the Giants and the Commanders Sunday. That is a big game, obviously, coming into the division. And I'm going to be honest, Caroline, I'm in my feels. I said yesterday I'm suddenly higher on the Giants than I ever expected. I think the Commanders are on upset alert.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, we presented our week 1 FVI, of course, the Football Vibes Index, if you are not familiar. And the Giants on the Football Vibes Index have to be like a top 5 team in the NFL. That does not mean the Giants are a top 5 team in the NFL. That means that the Giants just have vibes that are off the charts right now. The Giants fans finally have optimism, have something to be excited about. That comes in the form of their defensive front, that comes in the form of Jackson Dart, their young quarterback. But I think that this could be potentially a sneaky game. I don't think the Giants are going to be a very good team this year, but that defensive front is nasty. It is absolutely terrifying. But if there is anything that I know about Jayden Daniels, it is if any quarterback in the NFL can evade pressure, can extend plays at the hands of that Giants defensive front, it is Jayden Daniels. There's a few quarterbacks that I trust to do that, and Jayden Daniels is one of them. I do think Fitz, the Commanders get the win, but -6 might just be a little bit too rich for my blood. I think the Giants, and we'll catch up with our friend Ben Fawkes here in just a bit, and we'll get his thoughts on all of the trends and the shifts in Vegas. -6 might be too rich for my blood. I think the Giants are able to cover this one. I think they make things really difficult for Jayden Daniels.
The problem Jayden is going to have is where do you escape the pressure from? And I think what makes this defensive line particularly interesting is that they can get to you from 4 different spots, right? So they're not just edge rushing. They're going to be able to get to you up the middle also. The real key to this then becomes what do you do with the middle of the defense, right? So I'm just imagining this situation where the pocket's starting to collapse around Jayden and Jayden goes to take off. If you've got 4 defensive linemen that are just absolutely trying to hammer him, now all of a sudden your linebackers, your safeties are going to have to decide whether or not they're covering Jayden or whether or not they're stopping Jayden from throwing the ball over. One of the things that makes Mahomes so incredibly difficult to defend is that when he starts to run, he makes the defender make a decision. And if you decide to step up in his face to stop him from running the football, he simply lofts it over your head, and all of a sudden it turns into a 10-yard completion you didn't want to give up. But if you don't step up, then he runs past you for 10 yards. That's part of the magic of Mahomes. Jayden Daniels has the same ability, maybe even more mobility, obviously, but Jayden Daniels has the ability to make defenders make decisions. That's going to be the most interesting part of this Giants defense. What decisions do they make? If Russ is able to play with any level of competence at the quarterback position, I think the Giants win this football game. This is a really interesting test to me, and I'm admitting it. I'm a prisoner of the moment. I'm so in on the Giants defense making things wildly complicated for Washington's offense that I think that, again, if Jaden's making the right decisions, screen games, all of these things are going to be important for Washington's offense. I think the Giants defense can handle this. This feels like just an ugly, low-scoring football game. And if I get into that situation, if Russ plays clean, Giants win the football game. That, to me, that's asking a lot. Like, I think Russ is washed, but I don't know. During the preseason, he looked pretty good. Maybe we've got just enough kumbaya campfire juju that it suddenly gets the Russ through a clean game and the Giants win.
And I think this is part of the reason why the Giants are off the charts on the Football Vibes Index, because they feel like there is all of these pieces and parts coming together of building a team. I'm not going to say a championship contending team, because the Giants right now are a far cry from a championship contending team, but a team that's able to piece together wins against teams that they probably don't have any business beating. The Giants have the most difficult schedule in the NFL. I mean, it is an absolute gauntlet they have to go through. And I think that their win-loss total, at least on the sports books, is indicative of that. But defense wins championships in the NFL. Defense at least can win you games that you're not expected to win. So whether it's Dexter Lawrence or Brian Burns or Kayvon Thibodeau or the addition of Abdul Carter in the first round of this NFL draft this past season, like, the Giants will be able to win kind of those gross 7-3, 10-7, 13-10 kind of games, because their defense is going to be able to keep them in them. But I think the point that you bring up is a very fair one. Offense has to play clean. Like, Russ can't be turning the ball over. And we saw kind of some lame balls being thrown from Russell Wilson this past year. So can Russell Wilson do enough? Can he take care of the football? Can he, just F it, Malik Neighbors is out there somewhere their way to 2 scores? Like, I think if the Giants the Giants point total can be significantly lower, that sweet spot that they want to be in, because their defense is going to be able to keep them in those kind of games.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you see the schedule there. It is brutal. One of the benefits here that I think the Giants have is they rarely fire coaches in season, right? So even if this starts a little bit ugly, if they are seeing the progression they need, and if it does start ugly, then Jackson Dart takes over and everybody has the hope of Jackson Dart. Like, I think, there's a very short leash. If I had to describe Russ, he's like a one-night stand at this point. Like, it's fine. If it works out, you might call him again. If it doesn't, then you just block the number in your phone and you're done. Like, that's Russ.
He's temporary.
Yeah.
He's a temporary fix. Like, this is not the year for the Giants to win a bunch of games and make the playoffs. If they do, then great, wonderful, woohoo, throw a party in the streets. But this is the year of Jackson Dart's development. Like, that is, I think, one of the top prerogatives for this team. Obviously, it's the NFL. You want to win games. I get that 100%. This is the year of the Dart. And I think the only way that not the only way, but one way Brian Daboll loses his job this year is if Jackson Dart goes out there and we see enough of Jackson Dart and there's regression, or we see Jackson Dart and he doesn't look like a starting quarterback in the NFL, because I think that should be the top priority for the Giants organization and for Giants fans right now, is the development of Jackson Dart.
Well, it's all about darts in New York. We're going to start throwing darts at the entire NFL schedule. That's right. We've got a wild weekend slate of games. We're going to preview a bunch of them rapid fire. Aaron Rodgers' revenge game, but maybe for the other side. We'll talk about it next.
I think what I've always appreciated about him, what everybody does, is his ability to throw a football and pass it. It's like in Aaron in his prime, to me, is the greatest passer of the football the league's ever seen. He could get the ball from point A to B faster and more accurate than any player, I think, in the history of the NFL.
That's Tom Brady saying Aaron in his prime, the best passer of the football the league has ever seen. Aaron, not in his prime anymore, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm just going to stress that again. Like, in his prime, the best passer. He is not going to be in his prime, but he is in action this weekend. We're going to rapid fire through some of the big games that are happening this weekend. And I know you might roll your eyes when I first say that we're going to look at Steelers at Jets, but it is big, because we're talking about Aaron Rodgers taking on the Jets. Now, for what it's worth, 203.5 passing yards is his passing line at BetMGM. So a pretty reasonable number there that they're putting out. But Caroline, you can't tell me. As frustrated as the Jets have to have been for the last couple of years, and then anytime you're practicing against somebody that wears the red jersey, when all of a sudden the jersey's off and you know that you have the opportunity to just take a free run and hit him, oh, you can't tell me that. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers' revenge against the Jets is what everybody wants to say. I'm thinking about this Jets defense wanting to get their revenge on Aaron.
I think this game is all about the revenge, and it's Aaron wanting to get his revenge on the Jets. And he said, this is just another game. I'm not thinking about anything else. And maybe he's telling the truth just because Aaron Rodgers' brain just works differently than the normal human. And
facts.
I don't think that's a good thing. So maybe he's telling the truth. I don't buy it. You could tell me about how the Steelers defensive front is going to feast on a Jets offensive line that just lost Elijah Vera Tucker. You can talk to me all day long about what the Steelers overhauled secondary is going to look like. You can talk to me all day long about how the Jets are going to commit to the run game much more than they did last season. We can talk about all of these things that we want to see and all of these changes that we might see in both of these teams that underwent a lot of changes this past offseason. I don't care. Save it. I don't care about any of them. I do, but I don't. I care about Aaron Rodgers taking on his former team and his former team taking on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, even talked about, Sauce Gardner, who is, bestie pops with Aaron Rodgers in their time with the New York Jets. Sauce Gardner talked about, he's my friend, but can't wait to pick him off. And they've been talking about this. This does mean more, that we can have all of these players tell us that it's just another game. It doesn't mean anything more. It's a nameless and a faceless opponent, but we're all human. Of course it means just a little bit more. So that is the juice in this game. It's the Jets, it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's what kind of, revenge is fueled behind the scenes.
Yeah, the other juice in this game is that no matter the outcome, if Aaron Rodgers throws 3 touchdowns and the Steelers win by 40, then the lead's going to be, are the Steelers Super Bowl contenders? If Aaron Rodgers throws 3 picks and the Steelers lose by 40, it's going to be, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers. No matter what the outcome is here, unless it's
going to be Aaron Rodgers is washed, Tomlin's on the hot seat, he lost his fastball, Steelers are going to have a top 5 pick. Are the Jets a sleeper in the AFC? Coming up next.
We need to make a Steelers bingo card with every absurd take, and then as we get them, we'll cross them off. We'll see if our graphics people can help us with that. Let's go to another game that everybody's talking about. This game is actually between two, good football teams. Maybe the game of the weekend to some. All right, controversial take. Lions at Packers. Green Bay favored by 2.5. The Lions going up to Lambeau to start the season. This is a massive game with massive ramifications, especially because you want to talk about overreaction. If the Lions come out and they score 3 points, then it's going to be, oh my God, the coordinators have absolutely lost it. No Ben Johnson means the Lions suck. If the Lions go out and put 40 up, oh, the hype machine is going to be rolling. Lions drama is coming no matter the outcome. I love this.
I mean, the drama follows the Lions wherever they go. And it is kind of funny. This matchup, I feel like we just haven't heard that much about. We're not talking enough about. And I think it's because as football fans, we are all so gluttonous and hungry for disgusting. And this game is not going to be disgusting. This is a game and a battle of 2 playoff teams. This is a battle of 2 teams that we could see late into January. And for some reason in September, it's we have so many questions about so many teams in the NFL. And yes, we do have questions about both the Packers and the Lions, but both of those teams just feel so, decided. that it's like, nah, we want to see the gross. Like, we want to see the teams that we do have questions about versus two teams that, like, we want to see a Packers-Lions matchup like late in October. We don't want to see it in September. So it is kind of funny that we're not talking enough about these two teams, but I think you bring it up. Losing the two coordinators and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, kind of the brain trust in Detroit. Are the Lions able to figure things out and get situated and get settled early in the season against a really good team? And I think for the Packers, do we see Micah Parsons? And if we do see Micah Parsons, how close to 100% is he? Can he make an immediate impact for this Packers defense? Of course, there's still questions with these teams, but I think it's signed, sealed, delivered. Both of these teams are going to be in the playoffs, whether it's, winning the division or not.
I want to give the NFL their flowers yet again and thank them for the scheduling that they did on Sunday. As a fan of the late afternoon games, I'm like the one guy in the world that's a fan of the late afternoon games, the 4 p.m. or 4:25 p.m., depending on what day it is. The late afternoon games at first look like, oh my God, it's going to be dreadful, right? Like you end up with Tennessee at Denver. Okay. San Francisco at Seattle is a good game. It's fine. But then you get and Rams Houston we'll get to in a second. But the certainly the chef's kiss is they gave us the Lions at the Packers at 4:25 p.m. I appreciate that as somebody that wants to watch as many hours consecutively as football as possible. I appreciate it. What about that Texans Rams game? It's also in that late afternoon window. And look, it's not Caroline. It's not that long ago. A year ago, right now, it was the Texans are about to take that leap, and they're going to contend with the Chiefs, and they're going to be Super Bowl contenders. And now all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know, same old Texans. Like I don't know. Like the hype machine looks like it just died a slow, painful death last year. And now nobody cares about the Texans, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I think the Texans are the perfect example of all of our attention spans being about 8 seconds long because we were so infatuated with CJ Stroud and this Texans team in his rookie year. Rightfully so. And the Texans suffer, a bunch of injuries. They take a step back. They still win the division. Crap division, but they still win it. And now all of a sudden we're like, we forgot about the Texans. Like, we don't talk enough about the Texans. I do think the Texans, like this, what's the LA by 3. So, they get the home advantage there. I do think that this Texans defense is going to make things difficult for Matthew Stafford and this Rams offense. Fitz, did you know that Danielle Hunter is a half a sack away from 100 career sacks? Like, we don't talk about that. Why aren't we talking about that? Will Anderson had an 11-sack season last year? Like, those two together and Derek Stingley, one of the best young corners in the NFL, like, this Texans defense is going to be nasty, and we don't talk about it against Matthew Stafford, who has a back issue. Like, we're not talking enough about how good this Texans defense can be, how good this Texans team can be. CJ Stroud in year 3, they're getting healthy. Like, we all just moved on from the Texans so quickly, and I don't think that's necessarily fair, whereas we're all distracted by this Rams team that is so easy to fall in love with. Any Sean McVay coach team is going to be easy to fall in love with, but we're not talking enough about the Texans, and I'm going to put a stop to it.
I love that. We're going to be Texas stans on this show. I agree. Let's get to another one that's a big divisional rival matchup. Bucs and Falcons, two teams that should be contending for the. I mean, look, I just can't do it. I can't do it. Like every year, it's this is the year the Falcons take off, and yay, huzzah! No, it just doesn't happen. Like the Falcons are who the Falcons are every stinking year. Like, congratulations, you got Michael Penix Jr., who's thrown for less than 800 yards in his entire career. Now you're trying to anoint him like he's Joe Burrow Part 2. Like based on what? Like, I don't know. I just the next time I see absolute unmitigated greatness from the Falcons, will be the first time I've seen it in a very long time. I want Michael Penix Jr. to be successful, but we are stacking the Legos of greatness in a really weird way. A lot of benefit of the doubt is just being showered all over the Falcons. I'm not willing to do it. I think the Bucs are going to roll in this game, and the Bucs are going to remind us that they are much better than the rest of their division.
Like, we want fetch to happen so badly that we can't even realize that fetch is actually happening in Tampa Bay. Like, this Falcons defensive front is going to have two rookies, Jalen Walker and James Pierce from Georgia and Tennessee, respectively. So, okay, give me 2 rookie defenders who I think have the capability of being very good in this league. Give me 2 rookie defenders making their NFL debut against Baker Mayfield, who was the captain of a top 3 offense in the NFL last year. Like, give me Baker Mayfield to drop 400 on the Falcons this upcoming weekend. So yeah, I'm with you. This Bucs offense is stacked and loaded, and it just got that much more stacked and loaded with the addition of Emeka Egbuka. So yeah, give me the Bucs to absolutely roll. I think that this spread of 1.5 is disrespectful to Tampa Bay.
The Buccaneers are a hell of a lot closer to the Eagles than they are to a team like the Falcons. I just the Bucs are. I
don't think that's a hot take.
Yeah, look, I'd be stunned if the Bucs don't make the playoffs. I wouldn't be stunned if the Falcons end up with a top 10 draft pick. Like they're fine, but like they're not. There's nothing with the Falcons that makes me turn around and say it's all solved there. We can't make fetch a thing, but can we make Wednesdays a thing on the show? Should we just on Wednesdays we wear pink? Like I think that should be a new tradition on this show in honor of Mean Girls. We should just always wear pink on Wednesday. That's seems like the only.
I think that's
logical.
1,000% fair. We are making, pink on Wednesdays a thing. Not fetch. Yeah. We can't make fetch happen.
We can't make no, but
we just have to quit trying to make fetch happen.
A note to the entire show staff that on Wednesdays we now wear pink. I can't make Ben Fawkes wear pink, but I can get his insights. We're going to continue breaking down all of the action you need for the weekend of NFL, including from a betting standpoint. We'll talk to Ben next about some of the betting lines that are out there and one significant injury report we got yesterday involving Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey was limited at 49ers practice today due to a calf injury. CMC missed the first 8 games of the season last year due to a calf and Achilles issue. So this came from out of nowhere, and it has everybody freaking out a little bit. I understand why, and we're going to bring in our senior betting analyst, Ben Fawkes, to hang out with us on Yahoo Sports Daily to figure it all out. I'm Ben, total panic, mass chaos. It's Kermit the Frog. Everybody's rolling their arms up everywhere. What impact does this make to betting lines?
Yeah, we're back, right? The NFL season is here, and Christian McCaffrey is on the injury report. I think we've fully made it back. So this line had shifted, moved out kind of from 49ers as a 1.5 point road favorite in Seattle to 2.5. We've now bumped back down to a consensus of 2. It is still -2.5 at BetMGM, but most other books are at 49ers -2. So basically a 0.5 point difference, pretty much for skill position players, non-quarterbacks, right? So offensive linemen, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. It's tough to move more than half a point, maybe a point max if you're talking Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, some of those players. I would say CMC was that player a couple years ago, maybe in between half a point, 3/4 of a point against the spread, probably closer to half a point, which is the move that we've seen. The public has been on the 49ers so far, about 60% of the bets, roughly that amount of money on the Niners to cover. A really important game for the Niners, but remember as well, they have the easiest schedule this season by opposing season win totals. They're supposed to be favored in 15 games. This is a team that obviously you want to win every game, but I would say they would exercise some caution, especially given how last season went with injuries. They did trade for Brian Robinson Jr. They do have Isaac Orendo, who has a shoulder injury, but is okay, seemingly on the injury report. So with Kyle Shanahan's system, you always plug in the running back. Seems like they do very well. Obviously, they're not Christian McCaffrey, but I think the 49ers offense still should be very functional, even without CMC.
I look at the 49ers as such a boomer bust team because we've seen it in the past with Kyle Shanahan, right? When they're healthy, they're Super Bowl contenders. When they're not, they got a top 15 pick in the draft. And I'm so nervous about this 49ers team and their ability to stay healthy and kind of how I view the NFC West as a whole. Same thing with the Rams. Can Matthew Stafford stay healthy? I keep going back and forth in my mind about who is eventually going to take that division. And then you look at the Seahawks. You just posted on Twitter just a couple of days ago some big time bets for people that are high on the Seahawks. So from the betting perspective, where do you see the money coming in on the NFC West, and where is the best bet on the team to win that division?
Yeah, a very interesting division, right? And you've seen a lot of turnover, certainly with the Seahawks and getting rid of Geno Smith and bringing in my former guy as a Vikings fan, Sam Darnold. And look, if they get weeks 1 to 16, Sam Darnold, there might be something there. Really interesting the last couple of weeks, talking to a couple books in Vegas. One at BetMGM, they took 3 separate $50,000 bets on the Seahawks. One was to win the Super Bowl at 60-1. One was to win the NFC at 28-1. And one was to make the playoffs at plus 185. And if you add up the liability of all those, and obviously if the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, they would have to, by definition, make the playoffs and win the NFC. That one bettor, and that was one single bettor, would win just about $4.5 million. And there also were a couple big bets at 2 other Vegas books right around the same time. So again, you can't 100% confirm this was the same person because books won't give out exactly the individual who was betting it, but it seems likely as the same person going around to a couple different books and betting on the Seahawks at these numbers. So big liability at a couple sports books out in Vegas on the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if this is someone who knows something. I'm not sure if this is a Seahawks fan with some spare money to burn, but definitely interesting in that the Seahawks are this season haven't been really a big bet on team in the Super Bowl market. And same thing in the NFC West. They're kind of that 4th team, right? With people thinking the Cardinals maybe take a jump. The Rams, obviously a contender, and the 49ers as a favorite. So thought that was interesting the last week. Again, not sure if someone knows something. We'll find out in a couple weeks, but an interesting kind of off the radar, bets out there in Vegas.
It's Marshawn Lynch.
On that for a second. It's Marshawn. Educate me on that for a second. For casual, like if you're just looking, you're opening up the app and you're trying to figure out how to bet, and you see somebody that has placed massive bets, is that something that should influence your decision? Like, is there logic behind it?
So obviously for the person making the bet, there's some logic in that. I think it's always a question, right? Of like, if there's for a smaller bettor, people always used to bet right on like the Cubs to win the World Series because you wanted that ticket for if and when they actually won the World Series. Generally, if you're a fan, you're going to place a bet on your team to win the Super Bowl. The big thing you can always tell a bit with these is, does the line move? And at BetMGM, when these bets were made, they didn't move the line, right? So that tends to be a bettor they don't know, or a bettor potentially doesn't have a winning bettor, one they know, one they respect. And so they're happy to take that bet because, again, in the Super Bowl market, there's 32 teams, only one of them can win. So they're only paying one of those out, which is why even though they might have a $3 million liability on the Seahawks, they have even higher on some other teams. So it's not as big a deal for them.
There is a ton of money coming in on some pretty big spreads. A ton of money on the Broncos -8.5 against the Titans. A ton of money on the Cardinals -6.5 against the Saints. We seeing some trends there? Is Vegas smarter than we are?
Well, they would say so for sure.
Usually they are. Let me just say.
Usually they are. There's a reason there's all those big buildings out in Las Vegas. Look, the Cardinals game's a fascinating one. This open Cardinals around 3.5, pushed all the way up to 6.5 at most sports books right now. And as you would kind of expect, 75% of the bets, 85% of the money on the Cardinals to cover. I think this is really a fade of the Saints as opposed to a ton of belief in the Cardinals. The Saints obviously chose Spencer Rattler over Tyler Shaw. When I talk to odds makers this offseason, I do a piece, I talk to 12 odds makers. The Saints had the worst quarterback situation in the NFL, and Tyler Shaw was actually more valuable to the point spread than Spencer Rattler. So potentially for odds makers, they're going to a downgrade in already the worst quarterback situation in the league. I think that's why there's a fade there. And the Broncos is the same thing. A lot of bettors like the Broncos in general this season. They have a good home field advantage. They're at home. They're facing Cam Ward, who, again, number one pick. We haven't heard a lot about as a quarterback, kind of on Titans, a little bit of forgotten team. But this is just an avalanche of money. This opened Broncos -7. It's out to Broncos -8.5 at a lot of books. 80% of the bets, 92% of the money on the Broncos to cover at BetMGM. This is the second most money of any week one spread bet at BetMGM. And really the only reason there's more is because the Chiefs are playing tonight. But the Broncos is going to be one of the biggest bet games. It's going to be one of the biggest decisions. And it'll probably be the number one survivor pool pick this weekend as well.
So let's talk about win totals for a second, because sticking with the Broncos, everybody in the AFC West not named the Chiefs seems like is getting a ton of action on the over win total. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's seen by odds makers and bettors that the market, the rest of the division has caught up a little bit to the Chiefs, right? We're used to seeing the Chiefs as a much bigger favorite to win the AFC West. They're like -115, -120 to win that division, which is potentially a very good bet, depending on how you feel about the Chiefs, who are still a very good team. But the Broncos over 9.5 is the most bet by total tickets of any over at BetMGM. 84% of the bets, 83% of the money. A lot of people like the Broncos to win the AFC West. They're now the second favorite ahead of the Chargers. But we've also seen a lot of bets on the Raiders at 6.5, the over. 84% of the bets, 90% of the money. I think also that depending on some books, I believe BetMGM's at 6.5, some others maybe at 7.5. So some people taking that 6.5 too. And same thing with the Chargers, 80% of the bets at BetMGM, 77% of the money on the over 9.5. So I think in some of those games, people leaning, hey, a couple of these other teams, the AFC West may have caught up a bit to the Chiefs. Maybe one of them gets a game against the Chiefs a couple years ago you wouldn't expect. And also people are, it's August, it's September. People are optimistic, right? And so I think people are more generally going to bet the overs for some of these season win totals and their teams than the unders. But it is interesting that those three other teams have the majority of bets and money on the over. And the Chiefs at 11.5, the bets are actually about 50-50 on their win total. But the majority of the money on the under, Chiefs 11.5 at BetMGM.
But that's what we love about August and September. Everybody's winning a championship. It's great. It's lovely. There's sunshine and rainbows everywhere. We've got Bills and Ravens. Yeah, it's a blast. We got Bills and Ravens this weekend, and there's been some shift. Bills initially a 1.5-point favorite. Now the Ravens 1.5-point favorite. And if you look at any sports book, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are going to be at the top of MVP odds. The Bills and the Ravens are going to be at the top of the list of Super Bowl odds. Like, these are two of the best teams in the NFL. What can this game potentially do to those odds?
Yeah, this game is similar, I think, to the college football game we just saw, right? With Ohio State and Texas, where you have Heisman contenders with Arch Manning, who was the favorite. Texas was the national championship favorite. You have that still with Baltimore and Buffalo. These are two incredibly good teams. I think FTN Fantasy had the stat that going back, since let's say 1985, by DVOA, the two best teams in a 5-year stretch, number one was Buffalo from 2020 to 2024, and number two was the Ravens. So these are just two really good teams that keep running into each other, can't get past the Chiefs. Obviously, last year, the Ravens lose in heartbreaking fashion. We have seen some sharp money on the Ravens to push this line to the Ravens as a favorite. The Bills are never a home underdog. The last time they were home underdog was back in 2020. So this is a team that is always a home favorite. They were projected to be favored in every single game this season. That obviously wouldn't happen if they're an underdog week 1, but they also have a very easy schedule. So I think no matter who wins this game, you'll see a little bit of an odd shift. I think both teams obviously really important. You could probably make an argument it's a little more important to the Ravens just mentally to get over that hurdle of they can win in Buffalo in a big situation. And Buffalo's schedule is easy, regardless of if they're favored in 16, 17, 15 games. They're minus 750 to make the postseason. That's the best odds for any team in the NFL. So they're expected to be there. They're expected to win the AFC East. The Ravens have a tougher schedule, but also are probably the best team in the NFL. Probably were the best team in the NFL last year. They were number 1 in DVOA. So a massive game. I think we'll see slight odd shifts, and certainly the MVP, we could see that if Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen has a huge game. Lamar right now, the slight favorite ahead of Josh Allen and Joe Burrow.
The most important thing here is Ben has said, be optimistic on the Raiders in the same show that Caroline said that they're a top 4 team. ...
I said
in their division.
Top 4 teams in the division.
I'm just taking
they
all
round
the hope
out
I
the
can
top
possibly,
4
you know,
in the division.
In their division. All right, that's fine. I'll take all the hope. That's all I'm hearing here is hope. Ben, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you next week, my friend.
Yeah,
Thanks,
have a good weekend, guys.
Ben Fawkes doing great work. Check out his work on Yahoo Sports. Coming up, fact or fan fiction about some of the two of the best teams in the AFC. We'll do it next. There is a hands.
How does he do that so easily?
Now you got Jackson Dart just over here. Right. Okay. Anyway,
just feeding dubs left and right.
Yeah. Okay. Do you get to tell Tom Brady like flat out when you see him on the sideline? Do you just go up to him and just say, "Hey, it was a fumble"? He can't deny that from you.
Of course, he know it was a fumble. He didn't even know about the rule.
I only watch like true crime body cam shows. Like I want to see the actual body cam footage of a Karen at a traffic stop. As I've said many times on this, there's not a single sports movie that's ever been made that is worth watching. And that will include one about my beloved Ravens.
So not true.
You are not the first woman in my life to ever tell me I'm dead inside.
Magic.
By the way, I have a problem with that because my last name is only Fitz. He had Fitzpatrick and he goes by Fitz. I couldn't go by Patrick. If we end up with a world where the Hulu documentary is more interesting than the football team, then we have a problem.
I'm still riding with the heels all day, every day, and I'm talking trash all week to both of them quarterbacks, but not too much because he still got got to throw to me on Sunday, so I got to keep it. I got to keep it PG.
The pressure of 3 consecutive championships. Oh, that must be so hard. That must be so hard for you to win everything all the time. Boo freaking who.
We are now Yahoo teammates, which means now I can, slap Josh on the butt, and it's allowed.
Can Tom Brady relate to anyone? Because Tom Brady's process is just so different, to the point that Tom Brady wouldn't eat strawberries because he thought the sugar content was too high.
I'm going to put my Halloween troll costume on early and just remind you that what you just said is very true. Jonnu had the best year of his career when he got away from Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator.
In Miami.
Oh!
I know.
If one of us picked Justin Herbert before Patrick Mahomes, we'd be kicked out.
This is, the opportunity for Kansas State to say, look, we salute our troops. We absolutely love our country, but we're going to 4 cupcake smash you because we need to.
Are we worried about any freezing cold takes that might be out there for us, buddy?
Of course. There's so many bad ones. Here's one. Because I did 10 bold predictions for the 2025 season. Alabama will win the SEC title. No, they will not.
We are a pro big dumper program.
We're going to have to do something about this whole big dumper thing on this show. I mean,
we're not going to change it. It is what it is. He is the big dumper. Big dumper.
Okay. We got to do something. I mean, we got to do something about
It's incredible.
We got to do something about this. No.
I didn't name him that. That's his birth name. It's on his birth certificate.
I don't think that's what his
parents.
I don't think
Raleigh. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Could you imagine? It's like you had the mom, the nurse is like, "What are you gonna name him?" Big Dumper. But then in modern America, we'd spell it weird too, so they have to spell it every time they do their SATs. All right.
There's gonna be
that
like
best
a
of,
rogue
by the way,
EIGH somewhere where it doesn't
100%.
need to be. Yeah, just do a
100%.
Y like a normal person.
That best of, which we give you the best of every Friday. We really love it. It's amazing. It's the first time we see it every Friday. It always makes us laugh. It was put together by producer Hutton, who happens to be a diehard Ravens fan, and the video was rolled in by our director Josh, who happens to be a diehard Bills fan. It just so
House divided
happens that those two teams clash on Sunday Night Football. I thought we were going to get a big Mortal Kombat sound effect there. Look at that.
The baby on the left.
Oh, I thought you were
Chicken
calling
wing
him
love.
a baby. I love this. So we're going to play a game that we're going to call Fact or Fan Fiction. So we asked producer Hutton and Josh to give us some of their takes for the teams, and we're going to evaluate these takes. We're going to decide from the take whether or not it is fact or fan fiction. And I love the fact that it's fan fiction, which just the Star Wars nerd in me is buying into it. So we're going to evaluate the take of the diehard fans. We'll do this a lot with different teams, but we started in-house. Let's pull the first one up from Hutton. Hutton gives us our first take, and that take is that Lamar will have more passing yards than Allen in 2025. That's just fact. Like there's no doubt in my mind. Better weapons to throw to. Come on, like Lamar's going to have more passing yards. He did last year. He will again this year.
See, I kind of had a hard time with this. Like, I felt like that scene from The Hangover, when Zach Galifianakis is at the table and he has like all of these mathematical symbols going above his head. Like, that's how I felt. I even got to the point where I was checking the average weather in Baltimore in November versus the average weather in Buffalo, and like, okay, which quarterback is gonna have to run it more in the snow? Like, that's how in depth I was getting into this. So Josh and Hutton, I hope you appreciate that I really did take the time and the research, but it is fact. It's fact, and it's easy to come up with that because Lamar had more passing yards than Josh Allen did last season. But I also just rationalized the Ravens have a tougher schedule than the Bills do. The Ravens, I believe, have a top 10 or top 12 strength of schedule. And the Bills have like the 23rd ranked strength of schedule. The Ravens play in the AFC North. The Bills play in the AFC East. So I feel like the Ravens with a tougher schedule are going to find themselves in more like late game passing situations where the Bills might have the luxury of running it out in the second half. So I'm with you. It's fact. Lamar will have more passing yards.
I stopped listening to everything you said once you said The Hangover because all I could think about was finding a baby at a coffee bean. All right, let's get to the next take. The Ravens, every time I go to Coffee Bean on the West Coast, all I think about is Zach Galifianakis saying, I found a baby once where? At a coffee bean. All right,
Coffee bean.
The Ravens have a tougher schedule and likely – no, that's you. I'm sorry. I'll be able to read there. Fact or fiction now coming in. The Bills will claim the number 1 seed in the AFC. Fact or fan fiction? What do you think?
Fact. I think it's a fact. Again, I'll go back to strength of schedule. The AFC East is the most manageable division in the AFC, not named the AFC South. I'm going to promptly take the AFC South out of this conversation. I think in contention for the number 1 seed in the AFC, it's the Chiefs, it's the Bills, it's the Ravens. And I understand a couple of years ago, we had the Titans as the surprise number 1 team in the AFC. Anything can happen in the NFL. I understand that. But, the Chiefs are still going to have tough games in their division. Obviously, the Ravens are going to have tough games in their division. I think just with the schedule being more manageable, the Bills will have an easier path to the number 1 overall seed. They'll get the bye.
You're right. They have the easier path, but the Ravens are a better football team. I already told you, I think that the Ravens are going to give you the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year this year. They're going to be 2 different people. So, this is fan fiction. The Bills are going to really enjoy having a seed in the playoffs, but it won't be the number 1 overall seed because the playoffs are going to go through Baltimore this year. Look at that.
Dare I remind you who knocked the Ravens? I'm so sorry, Hutton. Who knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs last year?
Look, neither of these teams are going to the Super Bowl. They're both going to get eliminated from the playoffs. So I like that. That's inevitably going to happen. Okay.
I know.
Okay. All right. How about this?
I don't disagree with you. Like, they're going to get knocked out by somebody named Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
just
100%.
Time's a flat circle. History repeats itself.
Yeah. Hutton with this one. The Ravens should move on from John Harbaugh if they don't make it to the Super Bowl this year. This is a big dumper of fan fiction. Like, that's just no other way to, like, this is just fan fiction through, like, for what? You think you're going to go out there and maybe hire yourself the next great head coach, or you're going to hire the next guy that only gets fired in 3 years? God, no. Like, you've got one of the best teams in a stable organization. Like, I don't understand why fans of good teams can't appreciate what it's like to be a fan of a good team. Stability means something. People, fan fiction on this. My God. Like, what, you're going to end up suddenly with Antonio Pierce as your head coach one year, and then you're going to realize what it's like to have an actual head coach versus a non-actual head coach? Go ahead.
Antonio Pierce slander. What is he doing catching strays here on these? We weren't even talking about him, Fitz. This
nobody
is fan fiction. This is blasphemy. And I know this is coming from our producer Hutton because I know how he feels about Harbaugh. However, whenever I hear fans complain about Harbaugh, did you ever watch the show My Super Sweet 16, Fitzy?
Yeah, of course.
It's the show on MTV. It's fabulous. I always think about Ravens fans complaining about Harbaugh, how these little 16-year-old rich brats would complain about how their Range Rover's leather seats weren't the right shade of pink. My day is ruined. Dad, I hate you. It's like you are whining and boo-hoo crying over something that you have no right to whine about. Appreciate the great head coach that you have, because there are so many NFL teams that are Moses in the desert, lost, looking for just a competent head coach. And you have much more than just a competent head coach. You have a great head coach in John Harbaugh. So no, he's not going to get fired.
So that brings us to our next one, but related, because Josh gives us the Bills to move on from Sean McDermott if they don't make it to the Super Bowl. So yesterday, I'm at the gym, right? And I'm wearing a zip up, and as always, it has a Raiders logo on it. And everybody knows that 99% of my clothes have Raiders logos on it. And a guy walks up to me at the gym and he says, "Raiders fan, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, been a tough life." That's always my joke. And he's like, "Oh, there's nothing tough about that. I'm a Bills fan. We have it tough." Really? Winning a bunch of games every year. Oh my God, that must be so hard. How do you manage when you know that 90% of your Sundays are actually going to be good? Oh, that's got to be so tough. I'm sorry that one Sunday in January is going to break your heart while you sit there and you watch 12, 13, 14 Sundays there. Like, do you remember what it feels like, Bills fans, to know 3 weeks into the season that you're screwed and you might as well not even take the time to watch your team? Because that's what I feel for, 18 of the last 20 years, and I still sit there every week and watch it. Oh my God, fan fiction. Fan fiction out on this. Don't fire coaches that are getting you to the AFC Championship game.
I do get it. Bills fans that live through the four falls of Buffalo. It is brutal. It is devastating, but you did get to 4 straight Super Bowls. So that is my glass half full approach. I say that this is fan fiction But I also have to ask, how far away from the Super Bowl will the Bills be? You know, the question is, will the Bills move on from Sean McDermott if they don't make it to the Super Bowl? Well, what if you lose to the Chiefs in the AFC title game in the same fashion that you did last year? Yes, it was heartbreaking, but you were right there. How can you justify to me firing a head coach that got you to the AFC championship game in back-to-back years? Now, if the Bills, let's just say, like I just said, I think the Bills will probably have the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. If they host, let's say, the Texans, just for example, they host the Texans in the divisional round of the playoffs and they get beat by like 3 touchdowns and look awful in the process. Well, that's a completely different story, and that's a different justification for firing your head coach. So I think it just depends on how you lose in the playoffs versus just losing in the playoffs.
I love that. Fact or fan fiction, Bills and Ravens will meet again in the AFC Championship game. That's got to be fan fiction because last time I checked, I don't see Kansas City there.
I want it. Oh, I want it so bad. I want it
People
for
in Hell on Ice Water.
Because I want to see Josh and Hutton go at it at the AFC Championship game. I want it because I want something different. I'm sorry, Chiefs fans, but, you know, we're getting tired of it. We got Chiefs fatigue. I want it. I can't bet on it.
I want the AFC Championship game, and then I want to do the shows in person in a studio so that Josh and Hutton have to sit in the same room together every day for the week leading up to it. God, I'm terrible. I'll admit it. I'm
We're going to hear like old Western music, like
there we go. It'll be a rivalry for the ages. We'll be back Monday morning to tell you all about why the Raiders are undefeated and all of the weekend action. Hang out with us 9 a.m. Eastern, Yahoo Sports Daily. For Caroline Fenton, I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching.